Well, it's a good victory for, well, basic human decency, and to be honest, well, a good win for Gary Lineker, as it now appears to seem that the BBC is going to bring him back. And of course, Lineker doesn't have to apologize for anything. And of course, that is upsetting the right people all the time, which is, of course, those hard right wingers who cry any moment that apparently their free speech is being threatened, or they're being silenced, or they're being cancelled. Well, where were they to support Gary Lineker? Not a single one of them was out there supporting Lineker. Instead, they had turned around and instead were trying to silence Gary Lineker for daring to speak out, to questioning the government policy that the government themselves knew they were putting forward was going to break international law. And to a point where they even had to include it in the bill, saying, we don't think this will pass the European Court of Human Rights. Just, and even then, like I say, you knew and you could tell very quickly, at least the ones who were more socially aware, who knew that they were going to lose this battle, immediately tried to change tack. They started, instead of going after Lineker, they went after and said, oh, this is just another example. This is why we should privatize the BBC. And of course, all those ghouls came out of nowhere. And I've said to you before, privatizing the BBC would be a very, very bad move. Trust me on this one. The BBC has a lot of influence. And if someone like Rupert Murdoch were to buy or acquire the BBC, this would mean that someone like Rupert Murdoch would own massive swathes of the UK media, and not just the UK media, but media sources even more around the world, because the BBC is not just here in the UK. It has bits and pieces all over the world that it broadcasts to, not only just on TV, but on radio as well. Trust me, this would almost mean absolute total control for someone like Rupert Murdoch, or if someone else of a right-wing nature bought it, because let's face it, that's who would buy it. They would pretty much be in almost total control of, well, not only just TV output here in the UK, but also radio and local radio output as well, because that is something that people forget. BBC local radio is all over, up and down the UK. And if that gets privatized, they are absolutely making that political. Absolutely. So trust me, you do not want the BBC to be privatized. Does the BBC have problems? Yeah, absolutely. I agree, it has problems, but it's also in a position of it's damned if it doesn't and damned if it does. If it does something left wing, then the right come down and say, well, the BBC just have a clear left wing bias. If the BBC comes out and does something sort of right wing, the left come and say, well, that's just clear BBC right wing bias. It's stuck in the middle of a very interesting time for the BBC, I will admit, and trying to keep it, at least keep the BBC independent and free from government meddling, to be honest, is something we should aim for. And trying to keep it sort of, out of, shall we say, government leaning into private hand is something we should be aiming for. Whether it sort of leans left or right, it is a matter of discussion, but I think there's a larger discussion to be had more about sort of keeping it in sort of public hands, rather than sort of allowing more government interference, or even letting it slip into private hands, which would be, as we said, disastrous from a sort of a media point of view. But anyway, what I want to talk about today, because obviously the Gary Lineker thing is really important, but that is over. And as I said in our video today, look, I agree with what Gary Lineker did. Yes, he's brought a ton of attention to this issue, but here's the thing. Someone like Yvette Cooper, days before the whole Gary Lineker thing kicked off, was literally destroying Suella Braverman, literally kicking her left, right, and centre all over the Commons chamber, taking her to pieces over this bill, and yet she got absolutely zero praise. And as I said before, it is a function of the fact I said before that people are not politically turned on, or at least politically active, as they really should be. And that is where we've really led to this, because I'll tell you now, people will be praising, I think, Yvette Cooper, and I think, to be honest, people should be praising Yvette Cooper for what she said, just as they are praising sort of Gary Lineker. Like I say, if you want to look at what she said, there are videos of her on YouTube taking the Tories to task on this, literally, literally just knocking Cilla Braverman right, left, and center, all up and down the comments. It was a very, very good performance from it. But something else I really want to sort of bring an issue to, because this is something that we should also now be paying attention to, because the Tories, by the looks of it, just as we've seen with the BBC, saying that the Tories during this whole thing were saying, look, the BBC needs to be impartial. They should not be, or at least BBC presenters should not be allowed to criticize the government, or in this case, sort of government policy. And something that is very, very much slipping under the radar is what is happening in the Charities Commission, because the Charities Commission is now looking at charities' use of social media. And of course, charities, when they sort of sign up to their thing, you have to be sort of politically sort of neutral. And it is sometimes hard for some from charities to do that. But they've won numerous cases in the past of charities saying, hey, look, the government did this, but this is something that we are a charity. This is what we care about. Their action, their bill or whatever is going to sort of impact the people. So there's a lot of room for maneuver for charities to actually sort of criticize bills, policies, and even the current government. But if this Charities Commission gets their way, which is being currently run by a Tory under this social media usage, then it does look like that the Tories are now going to silence charities in the UK from speaking out about political issues, especially if it relates to their charity, which, to be honest, they should be allowed to speak about that, because if they're a charity, the government is doing something like this, then of course they should be allowed to speak out. And I want to bring attention to a tweet that Alistair Campbell recently tweeted about this, because I think, again, he's got it absolutely right. So let me see if I can actually tell you what, we'll try and bring this up. There we go. So this is the tweet from Alistair Campbell. So he's got this to say. So there is another sector where the same pressures facing the BBC are being mounted by the Tufton Street culture war right. Charities. The Charities Commission, till recently, with Tory peerage in charge. The commission is, guess what, considering on social media guidelines for charities. So this could massively affect them, and it would stop their ability to really speak out. So again, I have to ask, where are all these free speech warriors speaking out in favor of charities, of what is going on this? They're absolutely nowhere at all. So anyway, he continues to say this. They would apply to staff and possibly freelancers too. Unsurprisingly, many in charities are fearful that this is about curbing free speech and the ability to be critical of government policy. Consultation on gov.uk until Tuesday. Another bad creeping move by bad people. And I completely agree with him on that. This is something that we have to watch out for. They're absolutely trying to make a move on this, because here's the thing. What have some of these in the background we saw about? Who's been leading this? Well, you look at Marcus Rushford, and one of the things why Marcus Rushford got so big, if you look at sort of the timeline on this, was a lot of poverty charities were bigging up Marcus Rushford for what he was saying, which gave him a bigger platform to reach more people. And that, in the sort of the timeline of causing him to sort of fight back against the Tories, that is what we saw. We've seen other charities being able to use celebrity voices to amplify their message. And very often it is charities speaking out against what the government is doing, criticizing the government, criticizing the policies. So this is absolutely the Tories now trying to silence charities and take away their freedom of speech for talking about issues which they are, which again, a charity is passionate about and sort of focused on and trying to tackle. So be aware about this, and this is something I'm going to try and keep a close eye on myself as well, because I wasn't aware really about this as well either until, like I say, until Alistair Campbell brought it up, and I saw the tweet, and I was like, "Hey, good point, Alistair." So this is something we're going to keep an eye on, but hey, we need to keep an eye on the Tories, full stop, because this is yet another point. Pardon me. This is yet another point where they are trying to sneak away and get some of these laws away to stop criticism laying into them. And it is again not just celebrities and people they don't like. It is ultimately charities who very often amplify the voices of these celebrities, or the celebrities who are sort of the spokespeople for these charities, which I think mainly is the point here, to try and stop charities teaming up maybe with celebrities to speak out about these issues, which would have maybe lessened Marcus Rushford's impact. I don't think it would have stopped him, but I think it would have maybe lessened his impact that he would have had during that time. Same for we've seen with other charities who have used sort of celebrities to sort of amplify their message and their voice. I think this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to separate those charities from those big voices so that they can't use them anymore. And why are they trying to do that? Because they're scared of losing to these people. Time and time again for the past couple of years, the Tory party hasn't been losing, unfortunately, to the Labour Party, even though I've said, look at Yvette Cooper. Yvette Cooper's done some sterling job. Angela Rayner's done some sterling jobs. Even, Keir Starmer has done some fantastic performances in the Commons. But ultimately, at the end of the day, celebrities have a far bigger voice these days, unfortunately, than most MPs, and it does unfortunately affect our political sort of way of thinking, and it is because people are politically turned on. But if celebrities are able to turn more people onto politics, then ultimately that is a good thing. So I suppose it's a bit of give and take, I suppose, at the end of the day. But hey, there you go. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.